Hi. I'm putting this in Foxy Little Nuggets because, well, I think it's rather controversial. I don't want it to damage the other channels. But also, it's not really a piece of news or a hot take. It's more an argument rather than sort of a reaction to a news piece. So it doesn't really belong anywhere in the news sections. So I thought really it should be here. And I'm going to talk about terminations. As in child, as in, going to the hospital and not coming out not pregnant. There are people who say it should be available as a woman's right, and there are various moral, ethical, and religious arguments that say it shouldn't be allowed. Or there is the middling case where it shouldn't happen except for cases of where the fetus is unviable, where the mother's life is at risk, or the child is the result of a crime, be it or incest, for example. And these are all genuine arguments. I'm not going to deny the difficulty of this subject, and I'm sure each and every person who watches this video will have their own personal view. The purpose of this video is not to try and change your mind. The purpose of this video is to explain what is going on and maybe ask, is there a case to ban this procedure outside of the parameters I've already mentioned? But it's got nothing to do with morals and ethics, and certainly nothing to do with religion. It's an economic argument. It's an argument about demographics, because Britain is running out of babies. The UK fertility rate has fallen to about 1.4 children per woman, dramatically below the 2.1 that's needed for replacement, long-term replacement. And that, of course, does matter massively economically. Fewer children today means fewer workers 20 years from now, which means a lot fewer people paying tax to maintain an ever-growing retired population. There's also not only greater pressure on pensions, but greater pressure on health and social care. Also, economic increasingly dependent people would mean higher taxes for those who are working, for example, or aging out the retirement age to maybe up to 70, 72. Now, let's consider the termination issue. The latest official figures show 278,000 terminations in England and Wales in 2023 alone. If you add in Scotland and Northern Ireland, Northern Ireland's a slightly different case. It's actually not allowed in Northern Ireland, but they do go across to Liverpool, say, to have the termination. But across the whole of Great Britain, it's about 300,000 babies a year. Now, of course, it would be wrong to assume that if it was banned, you'd have an extra 300,000 babies a year. That would not actually happen. Some pregnancies would end naturally. Some women would travel abroad to facilitate a termination, knowing that there was no standard terminations. Behaviour and contraception would certainly come into play, and that would change. But even if only a substantial fraction became additional births, say half, that would be an extra 150,000 babies a year. The demographic effect over decades would be significant. This is the economic argument, and it's made by those who favour the tightening of termination laws. Why, they ask, should a country simultaneously complain that it does not produce enough babies, then import workers to compensate for that shortage and permit 300,000 terminations a year? Children, of course, are not free economic units. They do require healthcare, education, housing, parental time. Restricting termination could particularly affect women who are financially unable or unwilling to raise another child, potentially reducing employment and increasing demands on welfare services. On the other hand, there's an awful lot of people who do have the capacity to raise a child, who are desperate to have a child, but for various reasons are unable to do so. They could give a loving, mature home to a child, give it options, give it opportunities that its natural parents could never do. We should make adoption much simpler in this country. Of course, any demographic policy will take years, possibly even decades to work through. A baby born today does not solve next year's shortage of workers. But the serious economic question is not simply whether Britain should ban the terminations, it's whether a country with collapsing fertility rates should regard 300 terminations a year as completely irrelevant. The two subjects are normally discussed as though they inhabit different universes, but economically and plainly they do not. And so, while I'm not offering any arguments and I'm not saying what you should believe, you are free to believe whatever you wish. I am a lone voice. My personal view is that we should still allow terminations, but they should be rare but necessary. They should not be a form of contraception. And babies born where the parents are unable to raise that child, it should be easier for that child to be adopted by loving parents who are unable to have children of their own, to raise that child as their own, to give that child love, a family, a home, a future. Because that child's future is the future for all of us. Every child is now necessary. We should welcome more children into Britain. British children, rather than importing the hordes who loathe us and who despise us. Instead of that, let's create our own children. Let's not terminate them. I told you it's a difficult subject. I make no apologies for it. Whatever your view, I respect your view. I'm just explaining mine. I'm not anti-termination. I'm anti-uncontrolled termination. But I'm very much pro. We would be better off having our own children in this country rather than importing others. Let me know your thoughts on this. Thank you very much for your time. Bye.